All right, so maybe a little bit about what most of these lectures are going to look like. So we'll have a lecture portion, and then we'll have a demo portion where I will sit here and with you guys implement whatever we did, or use whatever we learned during the lecture to build something. Sometimes we'll end up with a fully functioning app, sometimes with like a little demo project. But yeah, so every lecture or every class will have some live coding happening. So all right, let's familiarize ourselves with what tools we'll be using for this semester. So Xcode is the IDE that we'll be using. If you download this right now from the App Store, it'll be 16 point something. I forgot to update Xcode on this computer. After this lecture, everything will be in whatever the version is today. So if there are newer versions, I won't update to them just to have a consistent version for you guys to be able to work with. You're always able to open older projects. You won't be able to open projects that were created with a newer version. So if you're working with a team and you've updated your Xcode to partway through this semester to a newer version, there might be some conflicts with your team. So I would encourage you guys to stick with whatever version is out right now. So download that one. Where do you get Xcode? It's available in the App Store. So there's the homework. The first homework for this week is install Xcode. So there's some information there that I'll post to Canvas. So Xcode. What is Xcode? So Xcode is your entire window into what we'll be doing. You'll be doing the UI creation in there. You'll be doing the code writing. If you're submitting this to the App Store, once you're done and you are really proud of your project and it's really polished, all of that happens through Xcode. So you'll submit to App Store Connect with Xcode. All of that is done through Xcode. Let's start with a new project here. And actually, let's go to File, New Project. It should ask us. I guess it's on the next slide here. So we have a couple of options here how to create a project. So if you choose iOS, you will be able to pick between SwiftUI and UIKit. If you pick multi-platform, your project will be in SwiftUI. So for the first couple of lectures, I'll pick iOS here, so you won't be able to build your project as a Mac app, which, if you didn't know, if you're writing your apps in SwiftUI, and why would you know? Because I haven't told you yet. So if you're writing your apps in SwiftUI, you automatically, with very little extra work, can ship your app as a Mac app, as an iPad app, as a watch app, as a tvOS app, as a Vision app. The SwiftUI UI framework allows you to write your code once and then with very little modification ship it to all of those different platforms. That's if you're using SwiftUI. We're going to pick iOS right now, not multi-platform, and we'll actually create our first app with the older UI framework. So we'll see that in a second. You also have options here to pick some other fancy things. We are always starting. Oh, didn't mean to double click. We're always starting with app. So even if you're doing a multi-platform, app just gives you a mostly empty project, which is what we'll start with. We'll give it a name. I'll just call this one. The first couple of projects that we're creating here are mostly to orient you to Xcode and get you familiar with the very basic differences between UIKit and SwiftUI. I want you guys to, from the beginning, have a sense that both of these are around, and from the beginning, kind of understand that there is a difference, and maybe also what this difference is. So first we'll do something in UIKit. And so I gave it a name here. I'm calling it UIKit demo. You might not have a team here. So I forget what this looks like when you freshly install this. But yeah, I don't think it's necessary to select that. An organization identifier. So this is a unique string that if you were to choose to upload your app to the App Store, this will be used to uniquely identify you or your organization. And so this has to be unique. I chose my SFSU email address here, which I know is unique because only I hopefully get the email that gets sent to me. Companies use their website, their domain name as an identifier, and yeah, you choose something that's unique to you, but not something that's confidential. So don't use your social social security number. Organization identifier, interface. So here we have, because we picked iPhone in the previous screen, we have a choice here. We can use Storyboard or SwiftUI. So Storyboard is, we'll go over what it means to be a storyboard, but Storyboard is the template that we pick here to write our app using UIKit. So Storyboard will give us a UIKit app. If we pick Storyboard, we get an option for language, so Swift and Objective-C. So all of this you won't get if you're picking SwiftUI. You won't get this this option here. What is Objective-C? So Objective-C is a language that Apple created over 30 years ago for writing Mac software, and then it was used to write the first couple years worth of iPhone software. It is similar. It's more similar to C++ in the sense that you're in charge of all of the memory management yourself. The similarity it has with Swift is with how with some of the syntax. So we'll see this later, but Swift and Objective-C are supposed to kind of read like a sentence, and Objective-C kind of started this. In my opinion, they did it pretty poorly because there's all these square brackets that make it very unreadable. But yeah, so Objective-C is an older language that allows you to manage the memory yourself a lot more. You have a lot more control over memory management. Why is it an option here? So if you are working for a company that is older than, that was founded maybe in 2014 and older, there's a good chance that they will have some Objective-C in their code base still. Totally fine. Swift and Objective-C work well together. But I hope you don't have to deal with this because if you're unfamiliar with Objective-C, it is horrible to read. So yeah, so I hope you don't encounter this. So yeah, language, Swift. We'll be picking Swift. And then storage, if you're picking the iPhone, you only get none or core data. Core data is something on top of NoSQL, so that it's a database that you have access to, but neatly packaged for us to access through Swift. If you pick SwiftUI as your language, and we'll see that, you'll get an additional option here. So we'll pick none for now because it gives us, if you pick core data, it'll give us a lot of boilerplate for database stuff that we don't need yet. We will cover core data. So one of the ways that we will be storing things to the phone is through this database interface. So if you're interested in creating a database app later, core data is something that we're covering. All right, and then you could check this one, include tests. I'm not going to check it right now just to keep the project really simple. Hopefully we have a little bit of time later to cover what tests are. But yeah, so who has heard of unit testing before? And who has heard of UI testing? So both of those things become possible if you tick this little box here. But yeah, not for now. All right, now we get to pick where we want to store this, and I'll just store it to the desktop here. And now we have a fresh project. And actually, we probably need this later. So let me give ourselves as much screen real estate as needed here. And let me just make sure I'm on track with what I want to do here. Yeah, okay. So the first thing we are going to build is a very simple app that does the following. So we're going to have a screen. There's going to be a button that for now just says maybe press. Maybe later it'll say something else. And then there is going to be a label here that says hello world. So that's the app we're going to build. If you press this button, the label will hide itself. And then if you press it again, the label will appear again. We're going to build this app twice. We're going to build it with UIKit, which is what we're doing right now. And then we're going to build it again using SwiftUI, and we're going to compare some of the differences there. So that's what we're going to do. So how do we do this? This is what an Xcode project looks like when you first open it. Let me maybe just briefly give you an overview of what to expect here. So this is the project navigator. We can hide it by pressing this button up here. So this whole panel goes away. Here we have access to all of the files that are part of our project right now. And then we have options here for other things. The ones I just want to point out here real quick is, so if you do a search with Command F, or just you want to do a search here, you can click on this. It'll get you here. If you have a crash, this thing will open by itself. So if you're doing something and you're losing your project, you might be in one of these different options here. And then, so the other ones that we might see, or that I just want to point out right now is, so here you have all of your breakpoints that you can set. Who knows what a breakpoint is? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about debugging at a later point, but you can set these markers in your code when you're running the app, and if you hit one of these markers, the app will stop, and then we can probe what's going on. So here you can see all of those breakpoints. You can delete them here if you want to. And yeah, so there's some other stuff here that we might or might not see later. But so yeah, the one that if you get lost somewhere, this goes away, that you probably want is the project navigator. We have two more panels that can be hidden or shown. So this one is kind of like a detail editor, detail viewer. So for it's context dependent. So right now we have the project file selected. So there's not a lot for us to see here right now. We'll come back to this one. We'll hide it for now. And then down at the bottom, and that is really annoying that it keeps disappearing. We have down here, we can bring up the console and the debugger. And I'm so sorry for that. So yeah, we hide and show the console and the debugger. The console is on the right here. The debugging environment is on the left. And you can hide each one respectively on the left, on the bottom right here. So these two little things hide. The left one hides the debugging environment, and the right thing hides the console. What's the console? You can see if you have a crash. You can see in the console what was going on, and when we're debugging, we can actually probe our code there. So we can ask, hey, what's in this variable? which is super neat. We can also print to the console. So if you're debugging, a very convenient thing to be tempted to do is write a print statement to print something to the console. But yeah, so the more we know about debugging, the less hopefully you'll be needing those print statements. But yeah, we can easily print something to this console by writing print. All right, so yeah, these are the three areas, Project Navigator and other tabs, the detail editor here, and then our console and debugger. All right, so what else do we have here? We have our project folder here. So and maybe this is maybe actually a good point to go there in Finder. So I'm gonna right click, or yeah, I'm gonna click to show in Finder. And when you're zipping up your project, or not zipping up, sorry, when you're submitting your project to Git or GitHub, I need all of these files. I need the project file, and I need the folder with all of your source code in there. And if you're collaborating, your friends and co-students need those as well. So a good thing to test this, if you're throwing something up to GitHub, clone it right after and see if you can build it. That's a really good test to make sure that you're submitting the right thing. All right. So yeah, that's our project folder, and then this is where we have all of the source code in there. The one that we're going to focus on right now is the one that says view controller. And if we have a little bit more time, I'll go over the other files a little bit later today. Otherwise, we'll do it tomorrow. So this is the file that we're going to be using to write all of our code in for this example. And the other one that we're going to look at is the main file. So the main file in UIKit is a main.storyboard file. So that's where the storyboard comes from when we picked in the beginning. Storyboards are not required. I am so sorry. Storyboards are not required for using UIKit. So you could rip out storyboard altogether and do all of your code in a different way, all of your UI in a different way. And so if we have time, I'll show you guys how to do that as well. But yeah, it's nice at the beginning because everything is very visual. Storyboards allow us to visually build our UIKit UI. If you're going to be working at a company that still uses UIKit, I'd say there's a 50-50 split if they absolutely hate storyboards or if they use it but with some restrictions on it. You could create your entire app's view hierarchy in a storyboard file. All of your screen information could be in this one storyboard file. The problem you'll run into then is, so let's inspect the storyboard file here real quick. It is an XML file. And yeah, so if your entire UI is one XML file, what is one thing that you might run into if you're working on a larger team? So imagine all of the UI is in one file. I'm seeing the right hand gesture there. So yeah, any other people? What happens if, yeah?
There might be like conflicting things.
Very good. Yeah, so if two people touch the storyboard file, even if it's not the same screen, sometimes there's some weirdness. If two people touch the same screen, you might encounter something called a merge conflict, and with XML and a lot of these auto-generated IDs, it might be impossible to merge those two pieces of code together, which means you might have to redo all of your UI work to get it to be merged. So that is one of the reasons why some companies absolutely will not allow you to use storyboards. And then I've worked at a company before where there were just rules around using storyboards. So that company had a rule that only one screen could be on each storyboard file. For this class, I would say don't worry about it. So even if you're working as a team, just communicate, I'm going to touch the screen right now, so please don't do any UI work. I think that's the best way to avoid this. Or, again, we'll also see ways that we don't have to use storyboards. But yeah, so storyboards, a visual tool for us to build UI that generates this awful, hideous XML. All of this is a thing of the past for SwiftUI. So in SwiftUI, the UI that you write generates code. Even if you drag and drop UI components visually, it will generate code, which is easily merged if two people touch the same file, which is very nice. All right, any questions so far? Sounds good. All right, so let's build something. Let's put something on here. So first of all, let's just throw those two UI components onto the storyboard that we're going to be using. To get to the UI component picker, you have this plus up here. So we go there. And now we can either search or browse the things that we want. I'm already seeing the two things that I want to be able to use here. So one of them is a label. So let's just drag. So I selected that, and I'm dragging now. The view that allows me to pick all of those view components went away. And I can now let go and drop it onto the storyboard file here. So a couple of things to note. So I can't just drop it anywhere. It has to be dropped in this particular spot here. This is a view controller's view. So a view controller, we'll talk about what a view controller is later. I can drop view components onto a view, and this view is managed by a view controller. And then there's a couple of other things that are maybe interesting. So there are these lines that appear to help me line up things. They're not actually that useful. They might seem really useful right now because you could place something like centered, that's great. If you're just dragging and dropping view components and laying them out the way that we're going to do it at first here, they will not look good on other sized devices, and we'll demonstrate that in a second. So ignore those. We'll be aligning our view components a little bit more precisely a little bit later. But so maybe just to demonstrate that, I'm going to plop it not centered. So we have a label. I guess I want it to have the button be above it, so I'll just drag it a little bit lower. And let's drag a button. So same thing, dragging, and I'm going to plop that button there. Okay, so label should say hello world. We could do that in code, but we're just going to hide that for now. So I'm just going to double tap the label, and I'm going to say hello world. And so we don't have to do anything else there for this little experiment, which is nice. And then, yeah, so the button, maybe I'll just say, it'll say toggle. Toggle. So we'll toggle the label visible, and we'll toggle it hidden. Okay, so we will come back in a second for how to lay these out. For now, I want to focus on just the functionality here. But just to demonstrate that if I pick a different, if this was a different phone displaying it, that we would get into trouble with what we have right now. Down here, we can pick the device that is used in representing whatever we're modeling here. And so these are just a window into the UI that you're creating here. So if I'm picking a different size, it doesn't mean that I get a blank screen. It just displays whatever I've created in that size format. So it'll blatantly show in a second here that we have a problem. So if I pick iPhone SE, our button is off screen. So we have a problem here. We'll address it a little bit later. So I think this is a good one to work with for now. All right, so view components in Storyboard UI Kit. We can just drag them onto the storyboard. Maybe a couple of more terms here. So the view that this UI experience that we have here, this is called Interface Builder. So Interface Builder is used to create our storyboard layouts. I believe Interface Builder used to be a different app at some point, and then it just got absorbed by Xcode. So yeah, Interface Builder, we'll see references to Interface Builder at a later point here. Yeah, so it is its own little IDE development area where we have controls for showing views, getting to the exact one, getting to places where we can specify how fast things should be apart from each other. So Interface Builder allows us to do all of that. All right, so how do we get our view to do stuff? So the thing we want to do is we want to be able to press this button, and we want to be able to hide and show this hello world thing. So the way we do that is by default, we have this one view here that we have access to, and we already have a view controller that was generated for us to write code. So I think you guys are maybe a little bit distracting in the back there. So just make sure that you're, if you're talking, maybe go outside. So yeah, we have one view controller here for us. We have the view for the view controller in here. We can create more, we'll see that later. But so the code that controls the components and the view that we have here is in this view controller file. How do we connect the two? We actually have to we have to have them both be visible at the same time. So if I option click the next component that I want, it shows up in the assistant editor. So I was on the view controller file. If I hold down option and then click on the main file here, it brings up Interface Builder with my view that I've just created on the right here. Now it might be nice to have a little bit more screen real estate. This is the view hierarchy inspector. Might be the wrong actual term here, but so yeah, we see the views and the hierarchy of views. We can hide that to give ourselves a little bit more space. It's the leftmost button here. So let's hide that. And now that we have Interface Builder and our view controller open at the same time, we can connect them. And how do we connect them? I'm going to want something to happen when I press this button. So the button has to be somehow connected to this view controller. How do I do that? I'm going to hold down Control, and so I'm still holding down Control, and I'm going to start dragging this button, and I'm going to drag it into the code. And when I get to a point where Xcode knows it can do something with it, this line appears, and then I just let go my mouse, and I'm able to do something with my choice here. So we're now connecting the view component that we threw onto that view to the view controller that will be managing this view. We have two options here, actually three, but two that we'll be using: outlet and action. The button, we want something to happen when we click it, so this should be an action. We'll see outlets later, but yeah, so the action means that we can write code that should happen when we're pressing this button. So we can give it a name now. So we'll just call it button pressed, and we have a couple of other options here. The type that is referenced here is the type that was pressed. So we only have one option here, which is UI button. You don't have to select this. We can leave it as any. I don't want to overwhelm you here, so I'm just going to say leave this alone for now. And then the event is when this action should occur. So touch up inside means you're touching the button. So you touch the inside of the button, and when you let go, so touch up. So you've touched it, you're moving your finger up. That's when this action should happen. So if you're thinking about pressing a button, that's kind of when you're expecting something to happen for a button like this. For a keyboard button, this is I think it's a little bit different. So you're expecting something to occur on press down, but for buttons on like a phone UI, you're expecting something to happen when you let go. But you can choose from other things here. So again, for buttons, it'll be really awkward an awkward experience likely if you choose something else. And then we hit connect. So again, what did we do? We control dragged the view, dropped it in the view controller. This thing appeared, this pop-up. We chose action, very important for the button, and then gave it a name. Everything else we left, and then now I'm going to hit connect, and we got something that we can work with here. So what it created for us is a function named button pressed. There's some parameter that is sent with this. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, so it created a function that gets called when we press the button. So whatever we do in here now will execute when we are touching the button and lifting up our finger. Maybe just to demonstrate the console, let's just print something to the console here real quick. And we'll say pressed maybe, and also I'll give us a little bit more space here by deleting that. So what should happen now? We have the button, we control dragged it, we created a function that should execute when we press the button, and it's gonna print to the console. Great. How do we test this? So up here we have the run button. So there's also a little menu. Yeah, there should be. So if you press down on it, you have other options. We want run. And so I already pressed it, so something is happening here. What pressing run will do, it will boot up the simulator. Which simulator will it boot up? Our selection of simulator up here. So you can also click here, and it'll give you an option of things to build to. I have my iPad. Oh, I have my iPad show up here. It shows up as unavailable device. Why is it unavailable? I haven't updated my iPad's operating system in a while, so you can only build to a version that is supported by your phone. If your phone is newer than Xcode, Xcode won't be able to build it. But yeah, so these are all the simulators that I have installed. You can install more simulators. So when you're installing Xcode, you can pick of what things you want to be able to build to. So you can pick from Apple TV and Vision Pro. So all of those will show up here. Not in UIKit. So for UIKit, only phones will show up and iPads. But yeah, so iPhone 15 Pro was selected here. So when I hit run, this simulator was launched. I could have also done Command R, and that's the one that's probably the thing that I'll be doing just naturally. So you won't probably see me press this button much. I'll just hit Command and then R for run. And again, this will build our app and run it on our simulator. And I don't know if you saw it, the simulator, when it was booting up, it was showing the Apple symbol. So what we have here is almost a complete operating system running in our simulator here. So we can even navigate the operating system. If you hold down Command Shift and press HH, or is it just, one second, is it just H? Oh no, it's just H gives you the menu, sorry, the home screen, and then HH gives you the picker. And so yeah, we have, these are some older projects. We have an iPhone operating system here. It's a little bit neutered. So you'll see there's no phone button here, so you won't be able to make calls. Text messages, I think you can simulate. I forget exactly how that works, but and then yeah, you won't be able to receive push notifications. So those are kind of the caveats. For maps, you'll be able to simulate a location that you're on, so it won't pick your computer's location, but you can simulate the location. But apart from that, we have a fully functioning operating system, again with a couple of things left out. We have a settings menu that is taking a while to boot here. And yeah, so pretty neat. This I think was our thing here that we're running. And so yeah, running in the simulator. We'll boot up the simulator. If it's already running, it'll just redeploy your app to it, and then we get what we built here in our simulator. So let's try out our toggle button. Let's hit toggle, and down here in the console we saw pressed, and that happens now whenever we press that button. We'll go over the architecture here in a bit next week. So what is a view controller? How does it fit into the larger picture of building apps for the iPhone? We'll talk about architecture then. But yeah, so for now, control dragging creates this function that gets executed when we press it. And here we have the little annotation that indicates that so IB means interface builder, and then action means an action. So action, we picked action. So that's how this function here is annotated. And there are a couple of weird things with this was a good idea to be able to visually build your app and then connect it to your code. There are some fragile aspects about this. So if I were to just delete this function, if I want to restart it, if I want to redo this maybe, I now created a terrible sin. So the interface builder file still thinks that it is building to this button pressed function here. We'll see in a second where it thinks that. So if I try to run this now again, it'll build nicely, and it should crash. So let's see. It should crash. I don't know why it's not. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is you might do something that you don't expect, and it'll break this this finicky connection. If you want to delete, so I'm not quite sure why it's not crashing right now. It should be crashing. But yeah, so if you want to delete the connection that you created here, there's a couple of ways to do it. If you have selected the toggle button, and this is where I'm showing you that there's still a reference to it, so it should theoretically crash here. Not sure why it didn't. So I brought up the right detail picker. You have, again, a couple of options here. The very rightmost are all of the connections that this component has. And as you can see, it still has a connection, touch up inside. It's connected to the view controller class. And if you have connections that don't correspond to, here, I know how to crash it, sorry. If I hit toggle, it'll crash, so yeah. So it built fine, but it crashed when I hit the button. So this is what a crash looks like. We have a red line, and in our console, we have what's called a stack trace. So these are all the functions that, it's the hierarchy of functions that have been called that led to this crash. For UIKit crashes, these are not very helpful most of the time. If you don't know how to debug these, so unrecognized selector. So when something is unrecognized, you probably deleted something that was not supposed to be deleted. So my advice to you is, especially early on, if you're using Interface Builder, use Git, and before you delete something, or even so touch something between UIKit and the storyboard and your source code file, commit your work, and then do your thing, because then you have a really easy way to undo it. This no that we did here, I will show you how to undo, but again, that you might get yourself into a situation where you don't know how to undo the no. So yeah, select the button, and now if I, there's a little X next to the view controller button pressed. If you hit that, all trace of the connection between your interface builder file and your source code file are gone. So it's all severed now. So if I rebuild this now, and if I hit the button again, so it just won't do anything, it's not going to crash. But yeah, let's redo this. Let's control drag, give our button back, select, please come back, select action, we'll call it, okay, this is not great. Button pressed, connect, all right. And now let's actually do the thing that we wanted to do. The button press should hide our label. So how do we hide something on a view from our code? We have to have some sort of a connection to it. So let's repeat what we've just done. Control drag our label. Let's drag it up there. And now we have one fewer option. So a label doesn't have an action associated with it. A label can only be an outlet. And outlet is a weird term that they chose. I guess the way to think of this is you can like, so out of an outlet comes, you have electricity come out, I guess, and it can go into something. And so here you can have a connection to the thing on the view, and I don't know. It's a weird term. So yeah, outlet. So let's give it a name. Let's call it maybe just our label here. Connect, and then again, it created this IB prefixed thing, an IB outlet. Ignore the week. We'll come back to that at the very end of our semester. And then we have a variable. So here we had a function variable. We gave it the name label, and then the type is UI label exclamation point. Ignore the exclamation point. We will go into that likely next week. This has to do with how do we know something exists or not. So it is part of the type here that is declared, but yeah, we'll ignore the exclamation point for now. So we have a variable, a label that's associated with this variable, and now we can affect this label. So when the button is pressed, we can tell the label, hey, you should hide. So label dot is hidden. We want to set that to the opposite, so we can just do label dot is hidden dot toggle. Oh, actually, we can do. So sorry, we could either do this, or we can do the opposite of what that was there before. So if it was hidden, it is now not hidden. If it was not hidden, it is now hidden. Let's do the same thing again. We do Command R or hit build and run. And now our app should be able to hide and show this label. So yeah, what do we do? When our button is pressed, we gave instructions to the label. We said, hey, label, please hide yourself. So we told the label to please hide itself. Any questions here? All right, so we now have the pleasure of rebuilding the same app in SwiftUI. So it'll look different, and then we'll spend the rest of the lecture talking about, so there's some very fundamental differences. We'll start talking about what those are, and try to reason why these differences are there. So the way that SwiftUI works is a more modern way of creating UIs. This is a pretty familiar way, likely to, if you've created a UI before, you have buttons. When you press them, a function executes. You can run some code there. You can tell a label to hide itself. So that should be pretty familiar, right? So who has seen this before? I mean, not this exactly, but like who has seen something like this? Yeah, great, cool. All right, so let's redo the app. Let's do, and actually I want to give you another break. So let's do, so we had a 10-minute break. Let's do another 5-minute break, and then we'll redo it in SwiftUI. So let's come back at 8:53. 1 second, yeah.